Support for this episode comes from the Diller Teen Tikkun Olam Awards. Applications and nominations are now open for the Diller Teen Tikkun Olam Awards. These awards honor up to 15 Jewish teens from across the United States with an award of $36,000 each to recognize their impact and leadership to repair the world. Nominate a teen leader today, or they can apply directly by January 9th, 2025. Learn more at dillerteenawards.org. This is Judaism Unbound, episode 454, Tales of the Unbound, episode 5, Open the Gates. As part of our initiative to expand Judaism Unbound into a family of podcasts, today we bring you an episode of one of our podcasts in that family, Tales of the Unbound. Tales of the Unbound, in its inaugural season throughout 7 episodes, follows the journey of 2 men who pursue Jewish conversion while incarcerated. The season explores themes of identity, conversion, belonging, and Jewish life behind bars. To learn more, you can head to judaismunbound.com/tales, Tales, and also subscribe to Tales of the Unbound anywhere you listen to podcasts. Without further ado, here is Judaism Unbound's Executive Director, Miriam Terlinchamp, with Episode 5 of Tales of the Unbound, Open the Gates.
Welcome to Tales of the Unbound. I'm Miriam Terlinchamp, and this is a 7-episode series about a journey of Jewish conversion within a prison. We are in Episode 5, and this is where our whole story has been heading. So if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome, and don't spoil it for yourself. Push pause now and go listen to the first few episodes in order to best engage with the story. For the rest of our listeners, I am so glad that you're here. And please keep sending us your emails and messages. We love being able to pass them on to Ari and Josh. Also, don't forget to check out our show notes for ways to volunteer, donate, and get involved. It was a straightforward enough problem. Ari and Josh wanted a traditional conversion ritual.
I stand on the shoulders of every Jew that's come before me, and in doing so, I carry on a tradition. And for me, it was important that I do everything possible because, 1, they had told me it couldn't be done, and it was being offered to me. And for 2, I knew that in the future, whenever we spoke about these things, that I wanted to give people an opportunity to view this in a way that they would see authenticity no matter where you come from in Judaism, whether it be Hasidic, Orthodox, Reformed, Conservative, Reconstructionist. I wanted everybody to see that the things that we had chosen to do were meaningful to us and that we were as authentic as we could be in choosing the way that we would do Judaism.
So, to meet that goal, according to Jewish legal code for conversion, we would need a Beit Din, rabbinic court, Milah, ritual circumcision, and a mikveh, ritual immersion, which for us meant that we would need, 3 learned people with security clearance for the Beit Din, a large enough basin for a 6-foot-tall man to have a full-body immersion, water that counts as living water to fill it, and a way to administer a ritual circumcision, which likely means providing a sharp object for a DIY, do-it-yourself ritual. All within a prison setting, 2,300 miles from where I live. No problem, let's do this thing. This is Tales of the Unbound, Episode 5, Open the Gates. The Beit Din seemed like the easiest part to tackle, so I started there. Amy and Marvin already had security clearance and could help obtain temporary security clearance for me. I just needed to convince Amy and Marvin that they were qualified to serve on the Beit Din. Even though they served as the teachers, chaplains, ritual leaders, and holders of space for Ari, Josh, and the Jewish community in Monroe Correctional, they did not see themselves as rabbinic leaders. To be called rabbi, you need to be ordained. But I'll be honest, this whole journey, part of me thought that Amy would be willing to claim that title with my urging and support. Amy already does everything and more that a rabbi does, and so I thought she'd see she didn't need me. But she didn't, and won't.
Don't think it would have ever felt real I don't think it would have ever felt like it would be sanctioned appropriately out in the real world, because I don't have smicha and I don't have those letters before my name and that kind of thing. So in this case, title does matter.
For Amy, the boundaries between ordained Jewish leadership and lay Jewish leadership are clear, so agreeing to serve on the Beit Din took a little convincing. Typically, a Beit Din is comprised of 3 rabbis. Yet in many communities, it is acceptable to hold a Beit Din with 2 learned Jews and 1 ordained rabbi, or even 3 learned Jews. What we were about to do was prohibited by Jewish law based on the principles we outlined in episode 1. But briefly, so we're all on the same page, conversion to Judaism requires free will, no limitations to performing mitzvot, the commandments, and access to the conversion rituals. Because of these requirements, asking other rabbis to join us on the Beit Din, even if they could get a security clearance, would be very difficult. After making many phone calls, it became very clear that if we were going to have a Beit Din, it needed to be Amy, Marvin, and me. Amy and Marvin lean towards traditional expressions of Jewish observance, and they embrace the deeply held Jewish notion that we live by the law, we do not die by it. Their students, Ari and Josh, were trying their best to live by the law, affirm their Jewish path, and give back to the Jewish community. So they said yes.
There is a definite logic to the conversion process being through a cycle of a Jewish year, and it coming to understand prayer and Torah and holidays and all that stuff.
Authentic is different than being worthy. I feel you're right about that. Being authentic is being genuine with who we are right where we're at. Feeling like we're worthy is coming to a place where I've been validated by others that I seek to be like them. And in this particular process, I felt validated as we went through this process together, that these steps that I was taking and who I am and who I was meant to be, that my heart was judged to be true, and that the things that I knew about myself were seen by you, Marvin, and Amy, which was hugely important to me because y'all are Jewish, born Jewish, my people, the people that I'm now with.
With that settled, we move to the next problem, the mikveh. In a public mikveh, the mikveh itself looks like a square in-ground hot tub. In many places, the mikveh feels a little bit like a spa. The process of immersing includes removing all clothing, jewelry, and makeup, walking down 7 steps to enter the center of the pool, and then submerging your whole body, including every strand of hair on your head, spreading your fingers and toes, allowing the water to enfold every part of you, rising up, saying a blessing, and then doing it all 2 more times. For an immersion to count as ritual practice, it doesn't have to occur in a community mikveh. My friend, Rabbi Margot Vallis, shared an article with me that depicts people building a mikveh in a bathtub, or in a cupboard in their homes, or the basement of a synagogue. Folks also might immerse in natural, living bodies of water like rivers, lakes, and the ocean. The why of immersion is about rebirth and marking a threshold moment. In ancient times, mikveh baths surrounded the temple where people would immerse before offering sacrifices. The mikveh served as a ritual bath to cleanse one of the deeds from the past and restore the inherent purity that is part of our humanity. Through the mikveh, we spiritually prepare ourselves to meet God, washing away what no longer serves us and allowing us to see what is before us with new eyes. Including a mikveh in the conversion ritual for Ari and Josh felt so resonant. Yet making a mikveh within a prison was a big stretch. The ancient texts thought through all kinds of ways to make a mikveh, and so does popular culture. In 2003, in Sex and the City, Charlotte immerses in a community mikveh as part of her conversion. In 2012, Oprah Winfrey tours a mikveh in Brooklyn. In 2015, in the Netflix show Orange is the New Black, Cindy converts to Judaism in prison. But Cindy runs into a snag trying to convert in prison.
Can I be a Jew?
Yes.
No, I need 3 answers.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah! Look at me now, I'm a bona fide Jew.
Sort of. It's not really official without the mikvah, but that was wonderful. Really, Tova. Congratulations.
Mick what?
Oh, it's like a baptism, but without all the touching. You soak in a pool and you...
We can fake that shit in the shower.
No, that won't count.
The mikvah needs to be pure, naturally occurring water, and you need to be fully submerged.
Maybe it'll rain, okay? There'll be a sinkhole or something. And we'll make it official then. In the meantime, you are Jewish, huh?
There is no mikveh. In the show, Cindy finds a way to immerse in a mikveh. But unfortunately, it requires a prison break to make that happen. And since that wouldn't be our particular route to a mikveh, we needed to find a large enough vessel to allow for full immersion and fill that vessel with living waters while keeping it all within the Department of Corrections rules. According to traditional halakha, Jewish law, we need 40 se'ah, or 575-ish liters of water to make a kosher mikveh. However, there are plenty of contingencies where the agreement is that as long as a person can fully immerse, the mikveh can be ritually kosher. It turns out that's not as much of a loophole as I thought. For full immersion, we needed about 500 liters of water, which I based on the scientific practice of Googling how much water do I need for a grown man to submerge completely. The answer was 302 liters, based on what standard bathtubs hold. So then I guesstimated that we needed about a third more than a bathtub for Ari and Josh to be able to immerse fully, bringing us right back to the number stipulated as the minimum in the Talmud. And then I had an idea. The guys met in a chapel shared by all religious groups in the prison, meaning that there was likely a baptistry, a communal tub or pool used for baptisms. We share the same source text, so it makes sense that our rituals overlap too. Amy asked the pastor if we could borrow it, and then all that was left was how to use it to fulfill the obligations of a kosher immersion. That was the easy part. The prison is just outside Seattle, Washington, which receives 39 inches of rain annually. Plus, there are lakes, rivers, and an ocean within a few miles of the prison, all of which also count as living waters for ritual immersion purposes. The trick is that a mikveh is supposed to be filled with waters that have never been dormant, so that it is ever-flowing, mimicking the primordial seas of creation. Luckily, the prison uses collected rainwater as its water source. I was able to collect water to supplement the mikveh and bring it as close to traditional ritual standards as possible in that context. On the day of the Beit Din and mikveh, the guys rose early that morning and filled the baptistry in preparation. They used only hot water, knowing that I'd add cold collected waters to it later. Then they placed the lid on the mikveh and let it sit. We're looking at a baptismal font that looks like a bathtub with, what do you think, like half a foot of water here? With a place for your head.
Yeah, it's probably a good 100 plus gallons.
100 gallons, you think? Yeah. Do you guys want to look at it?
Yeah,
come look.
I had this build up last night. I never got to look at it.
Did you do it?
No, I had the
Put your hands in it. Feel it.
It's warm water, too.
Turns out, Jews don't know very much about baptistries. So when it was time to get into the mikveh, the water was scalding.
This mikvah made out of wood and holding water, and it was void of any markings of any kind. But the water that was put into it initially was extremely hot. It was like a hot tub and a hot spring and scalding almost for me. I felt like I was a lobster in water, if that's a thing, at that point. I remember stepping into that water, and as soon as my toes dipped into the water, you were like, well, we can wait. And I was like, no, we can't. I've waited already.
I forgot how warm the water was. It was like, oh my gosh. But, the whole experience of it was just like magical to us.
How's it feel?
It's hot.
Is it too hot? Do you want to wait?
Ooh, it's hot.
Because we could do some other stuff and then whatever.
Don't be scared, Josh. It's like last night all over again.
There was another thing that we did last night that was really scary, and I did that too, so...
So we're going to need to get your head in there somehow.
That's for your feet, and then you go
Oh, you go backwards? Okay, that's way smarter.
Make sure you plug your nose.
How's it feel?
Oh, it's a hot tub. It's a hot tub.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, right?
So before you... It's not supposed to be hot. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, we shouldn't be giggling.
It's sitting in the warm waters.
Yeah, he was not kidding.
They're probably being nice to you by making it hot.
How did you get in here? Man, they wash you clean. I don't know if you know how hot this is, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's very hot.
All right.
Why are you sweating?
Hi.
Why are you sweating?
Feel so close to you, baby.
Okay, we're good.
Take a big breath in. The day was so solemn up to that point. Everyone on their best behavior, and also still so nervous. So when we watched Josh edge his way into the water 1 foot at a time, it lightened the mood. And in real time, we watched as he recalled the last time he had submerged in water. He was a teenager. And then, also, he remembered his mother, giving him a bath as a child. The water brought all those moments back. The living waters of creation, the waters of home life, the waters of freedom.
The ritual immersion in the mikveh within the walls of this place, pouring living water into this thing and watching this unfold, submerging under that water, that living water, and repeating the blessings as I arose. That warmth was spreading throughout me. And I was having to catch my breath at some point. Those words that we were saying, they were so meaningful. They were creating something new inside of me. Something was blooming inside of me.
For Ari, too, it felt like that. Even as his skin flushed red with hot water, he remembered how he used to love to swim, to scuba dive, the freedom of extending his body in the weightlessness of water.
14 years it had been since I had been submerged in water in a bathtub, or something that was very close to my heart is water. I love to swim. I love just to be submerged in water, and that feeling of just being in it and knowing that this is me in my element. 14 years I had not been inside a tub of any kind, and that was the first time that I'd been submerged in water, and it was just amazing and felt so fulfilling to be inside that water.
And for Amy, Marvin, and myself, those same memories came to us too. The intimacy, freedom, and holiness of the everyday rituals we do in water. The last thing we needed to figure out was the milah, the ritual circumcision. There is a difference between circumcision and ritual circumcision. Circumcision is the medical procedure of removing the foreskin of a penis. Ritual circumcision is an external reminder of the covenant of God, which includes the removal of foreskin on the 8th day of a baby's life. There's a ceremony and prayers that accompany that procedure, called a bris or a brit milah, a covenant of circumcision. If you were not circumcised as a baby, some denominations of Judaism and many rabbis require a ritual circumcision regardless of age. There are also plenty of rabbis who do not require this act. Instead, they may recommend something called hatifat dam brit, which is a ritual of drawing a drop of blood for those who have already been circumcised, but without the ritual, like in a hospital or before the 8th day, or at a time before converting to Judaism. The hatifat dam brit or tipat dam ritual involves drawing a drop of blood from where the foreskin used to be attached. Side note, for non-binary or trans folk, there are some great resources from the Trans Halacha Project through Sfara that address how this ritual might work for non-cis men. Also, I have to confess that I really didn't want to do this part. I'd never required a brit milah or a tipat dam in previous conversions that I had sponsored, even though they are strongly recommended in Reform Responsa and necessary in other Jewish denominations. I have lots of feelings about it, and it was hard for me to understand its importance to the guys. But in Ari and Josh's minds, their conversion would not be authentic without tipat dam.
I love that you gave us options because it gave us an opportunity to choose. And in choosing the way that we wanted to go about it, we wanted to do the ritual circumcision, we wanted to do the Beit Din, we wanted to do the mikvah, and we wanted to do everything that was necessary. So that way, for me moving forward, I would know that there was nothing left undone.
It was my job as a sponsoring rabbi to figure out how to make it possible. I remember sitting on a Beit Din a long time ago with another rabbi who mentioned to me that he encouraged folks to self-administer their tipat dam. So I called him up, and he explained it all to me and sent me a handy one-page how-to sheet. I copied it and wrote medical information in large block letters on the top of the page, mostly out of concern that it would appear as illicit material to the security officers in the prison mailroom, and I sent it along. Here's the thing. I'd avoided the details of circumcision while I was in rabbinical school, and during the many bris rituals I had officiated, I always looked away. I have 2 daughters myself, so perhaps this was a way for the universe to test me a bit, remind me that what works for me or what makes me uncomfortable doesn't really matter if it works with a person who I am serving. Then it's my role to lean in with an open heart. And it was an opportunity for growth and empathy for me to help someone else walk this part of the journey. It also felt like we were learning it together. Josh noticed that diabetic lancets were available for purchase in the commissary, as the handout had recommended. We agreed that he and Ari would self-administer their hatifat dam in their cells in private before coming to the Beit Din, and would bring the gauze to us with a drop of blood. All 3 of us played it really cool, but I know that each one of us was very nervous. I read that it wouldn't hurt much, that there wouldn't be much blood, but I don't have a penis, so what do I know what hurts or doesn't hurt? And what would it mean to have to perform such a personal act within the context of a jail cell, with the noise of the common room, cellmates, and all the energy of prison life that is so counter to the meditative space of a religious ritual? I was nervous for them, and I wished it didn't matter so much to them. I also wanted to support them every step of the way.
I was talking to Josh, and I was like, look, if Avraham can do this with a seashell, we can do it with a needle and draw some blood, and, let's do the thing. Which is funny, because both of us were super nervous about this, because it's like waiting for a bee sting that you know is coming, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt so bad. But I thought it was going to be this really beautiful thing, and I'm going to be in my own private space and say these Hebrew blessings, and then came the time where it's like, okay, let's do the thing, and there was a lot of hesitation, because it's like, wow, this is really going to hurt. And then I'm like, how does he do this with a seashell? Man, so it was something that we both wanted to go, look, we did all the things, and if there had been more things required, we would have done that.
One of the things that was the hardest thing to do was the ritual circumcision. Specifically for the purpose of conversion, this was an intense experience, and I knew what was going to be happening, and I anticipated the pain, and I knew that this was something that was mandatory. Without this blessing, there would be no covenant. Without this action, there would be no receiving. And so I tried to do this thing, and there was a moment in time when I backed up and I said, what am I doing? And I was like, but I want this. Reflecting backwards, there was nothing that was going to keep me from this moment. And so in that moment, I did the thing, and the relief was immense as far as it being over with, although that memory will be imprinted on me forever, because there was pain along with blood on the gauze as evident, and there was just this intense, I did step 1.
Clearly, it did hurt. A lot. Which isn't true for everyone, but it was certainly true for Ari and for Josh. Also, both Ari and Josh walked into the Beit Din with such confidence that the hardest part was behind them, that from here on out, it was all about pure acceptance.
I will be honest with you, I was scared of going to the house of judgment. I was scared of coming to the Beit Din. Why was I scared? Who knows? Maybe it's just the last time that I was in front of any type of judges of my character. It was not deemed in a way that was beneficial to me, but then again, this was completely different. And so in some ways, I recognize that this is a process, and I might not be found worthy of being part of this community at this point. But the one thing that I felt for sure and for certain is that Ari was at a place in his relationship with Judaism that he would be. And so even if I didn't know everything that I needed to know at that time, that's how I felt. I felt like I didn't know everything I needed to know. And I felt like Ari was in that place where he would know everything that he needed to know in order to be able to answer questions eloquently and be able to pass through the house of judgment and come into every other part of the process with an open heart and become the person that he is today, the man that he is today. What I didn't consider at that time is something that I understand now, that learning is a lifelong process. And this is something that you had reflected back to me, is that we will continue learning together for the rest of our lives. And all of us will continue learning, and we'll pass this along. And so I did not think that it was a for sure thing. I very much thought that there was a possibility that I might not make the cut, so to speak.
I was expecting like all these hard questions at the Beit Din, and we both had stayed up studying like, oh man, we don't know what they're going to ask us, and like I don't want to get something wrong, and like we were going over all these books and other things, and I was like, oh man, this feels like a pop quiz. And it was more like a conversation, and I thought we were going to be kind of raked over the coals, like, why do you want to be Jewish, and like, what do you know about this, and in Breshit verse 5, what does it say here? Like, I wasn't sure what to expect, but this whole experience was just amazing.
We started with the first question. How did you reach this moment in time? It's a play on the Shehechianu, the Jewish prayer for gratitude that thanks God for reaching this moment in time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen.
Josh went first. We asked him all sorts of questions about his practice, his connection with God, the way he observes the Sabbath, his feelings about peoplehood, Israel, and what he wants to learn next. We asked him to explain why he chose his Hebrew name, Yirmiyahu ben Avraham v'Sarah.
Yirmiyahu was given to me. My name, God has loosened my bonds, was so meaningful to me at that point in time because that's exactly what Hashem had did. He had loosened my bonds in a place where people told me that this would never happen. You will never be Jewish and you will die in prison. This will never happen for you because you have no free will. But how could I not have free will? I'm the most free that I've ever been in my life. And as I went into this mikvah and came out Jewish, God had loosened my bonds. Joshua Phillips had transformed the Yirmiyahu ben Avraham v'Sarah, and I was indulged with the acceptance of my community.
Then we blessed him, affirmed him, and turned to Ari. We asked Ari, how did you reach this moment in time? And we questioned him about Torah, his learning, his prayer practices, and culture.
It was a desire to affirm something that I already believed, but I just kind of wanted to announce it to the rest of the world. You know, I had been keeping Shabbat and doing all the things for the last 15 years or so, and finding ways for people to learn things and make it relatable is, I think, kind of the point of it all. I mean, it's not like about what we believe, it's more about how we act. And if a parable can get you to remember to act in a certain way or keep someone in mind, I love that. The things that you can relate to the current social justice movement, remembering that we were strangers in the land of Egypt and terribly mistreated and no one helped us. We were aware of what it was like to be mistreated, and now as I move forward on my journey to help out with civil rights, you know, it's like you need to stand up for the people that are oppressed through representing them or through tikkun olam, you know, rebuilding the world.
Then we blessed him, affirmed him, and then a bell sounded. And one by one, the rest of the guys walked into the chapel, Amy, Marvin, and I had been sitting in 3 chairs facing Ari and Josh, like ellipses. The men moved their chairs so that they sat behind Ari and Josh, like we were in class or on display. Their presence surprised me. I thought we'd have more time privately with Ari and Josh, and now, for this third piece of the ritual, the mikveh went from a private ceremony to a public one.
I actually like the idea of the public immersion because it's like you have the community there and it's like everybody's watching you take the plunge, literally. And it was super cool to have you, Marvin, and Amy each say a different blessing to come up out of the water the 3 times, and it was like, wow. So I love the public part of that because in essence, you're joining a community, so why not have the community there? So for me, I actually like having all the people around. It was really cool.
It was a powerful shift. The mikveh can be incredibly emotional. So can the Beit Din, and certainly the Milah, the ritual circumcision. In prison, nothing and everything is hidden. There are cameras and security practices and guards and regulations and checkpoints watching your every move. And what you care about, your vulnerabilities and weaknesses, must be held close to the chest, lest they be exploited. So to then, in that context, ask Ari and Josh to be their most exposed, to be tearful and thoughtful, full of stories and yearning in front of their Jewish community, was a very large ask. And they didn't hesitate. It was just about who would get in the water first. You already know about the blessing and the kiss. What you don't know yet is what Ari and Josh do to mark their Jewish affirmation within their community.
I was talking with Josh and I was like, well, we don't really have a temple these days, but we could give something to the group and that can be our sacrificial offering. And for us, that's like a year's wages, but it was something that will bless the group for many years to come.
Early on, I explained that part of belonging to a people involves giving back to your community, not just receiving from it. It's typical in an organized Jewish community to pay membership dues to a synagogue, to volunteer, to make a financial contribution to mark a moment of joy or loss in someone's life, and to find ways to contribute visibly to the growth and well-being of the community. So in addition to preparing a spiritual autobiography, reading books, talking with me, and learning with Marvin and Amy, I asked them to consider a gift that would mark this moment and benefit the Jewish folks in Monroe Correctional.
I remember we had been talking about things that might be a blessing to the group, and you had said you really liked the Mishnah, and that kind of touched Josh in a certain way. And I love these stories that are in the Midrash, and whether they're true or not true, there's always a cool ending and things that you can relate to Judaism or something that teaches a moral story, it's kind of cool. I'm reminded of the story of David on the run, and there's a spider that builds a web in front of the cave, and when the soldiers come looking for him, they're like, well, he can't be in here. There's a giant spider web, and those take forever to build. So it's just like these cool old stories that are like the background to what goes on in the Tanakh and whatnot, and it's just pretty cool.
They decided to purchase a set of Midrash Rabbah and Mishnah. Inside, it cost about $1,200 to buy those books, which for Josh and Ari is about a year's worth of salary. A year of cleaning, sorting, landscaping, laundry, dishes, painting, hours of labor to buy books for their group.
Josh and I donated a gift to the group as part of our conversion. I bought the entire Midrash Rabbah, and Josh bought the entire Mishnah, and that was our contribution to the group as part of our becoming Jewish, so that the rest of the community could benefit from something to study, which was pretty cool. I make $1 an hour painting murals, so the set was $540 for all 12 books, and I think his Mishnah set was around the same price. He got 6 box sets of books, so I think it was around $500 or $600 as well. But It was just something that I was able to sell a couple of paintings to some friends that I told them what I wanted to do, and they were like, I'm in.
And why those books? So that their fellow Jews could work on bringing a Devar Torah, a sermon, or a study piece on Shabbat. They started a new practice with the books. Everyone needs to teach Torah, they said. They created a sign-up sheet, and the group got to it, each signing up for a week and preparing their offering by reading about their portion in the books. Once they were accepted into the Jewish people, the first thing that Ari and Josh do is to open the gates wider. That's what happens in the Talmud, too. In Brachot 28a, Rabban Gamliel was the head of the greatest academy in the world. But he was so restrictive in who could study with him that eventually he was dismissed from his position. Once he was gone, the gates were opened, and permission was granted for students to enter. First, a few benches were added to the study hall, then 400, then 700. The yeshiva floods with new students. Rabban Gamliel sees this growth, and in distress he cries out, "Woe, I have withheld the Torah from Israel," grieving over the gatekeeping he had maintained for so long. The very first case that is decided in that new, flourishing community of the yeshiva is to allow for Amnon the Moabite, a learned man who is biblically prohibited from conversion, to join the community, rejecting the biblical statute and choosing instead to radically see the human before them for the gift that he is. The first thing that happens when you open the gates is that those that come after us will open them wider. In each opening, we are pushed to ask ourselves, where is my gatekeeping preventing Torah from reaching the people? Also, its companion question, where is my gatekeeping helping people hold fast to the Torah? Each time, it's a fresh opening, a new process of interrogating how best to serve one another, to bring the Torah to each other and through each other out into the world for the betterment of the world. That doesn't mean it's not scary or without sacrifice. Change always requires a piece of our soul to shift, and growth is rarely comfortable. But becoming our fullest selves is the holiest, most human thing that we can do. Thanks for listening. Tales of the Unbound is a production of the Institute for the Next Jewish Future and part of the family of podcasts of Judaism Unbound. Tales of the Unbound was created and written by me, Miriam Terlinchamp, produced and edited by the amazing Joey Taylor, original music by Rich Hordinsky, and art by Katie Kasner-Frenchman. Thank you to Amy and Marvin and all those who serve the Jewish people. A shout out loud and clear to Ari, Josh, and all the Jewish folks in Monroe Correctional, and to all people everywhere trying their best to do good time. Special thanks to DOC at Monroe Correctional who allowed access to Ari and Josh. Check the show notes to find out ways you can get involved to support those who are incarcerated and for amazing behind-the-scenes content. We always love hearing from you, so please email me at miriam@judaismunbound.com or find us at www.judaismunbound.com/tales. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will delve into why I said yes way to this project. Thanks for listening. This has been Tales of the Unbound.
Ah, ah, ah.